Hello and welcome to the Scots Sports Show. I'm Drew Patrick. We will be joined by my co-host Mike Fenner a little later on the show. But we'll start this show off like we start every show with the Fighting Scots of the Week. Let's start on the women's side. For the women, it's Ida Narboval of the track and field team. She had a dominant performance at the PSAC Championships, winning both the 3K and the 5K races. Just utterly dominant, lapping a lot of people. Congratulations, Ida Narboval, your female Scot of the Week. On the male side, it's Henri Wade Chapman of the basketball team. Had a good week last week, starting with the last game of the regular season against Cal, where he went for 18 points and 7 boards on the night. That led to the first game in the playoffs against Clarion. He had a game-high 24 points. Unfortunately, that came on the losing side. And Henri Wade Chapman, he finishes 9th all-time in scoring in Edinburgh history with 1,397 total points. Congratulations to Henri Wade Chapman, our male Scot of the Week. Now don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we will talk wheelchair basketball as Edinburgh plans to play host to the National Championship of Intercollegiate Wheelchair Basketball in Macomb Fieldhouse on March 10th, 11th, and 12th. We'll have that right after the break. Don't go anywhere.
There's one thing you can never have sex without.
It's not something you buy.
Or something you take.
In fact, there's only one way to get it.
It has to be given to you, freely.
It's consent.
Because sex without it isn't sex.
It's rape. Consent.
If you don't get it, you don't get it.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
So good to see you guys. So, what's up?
Oh, we finally bought a place.
Holy cow.
You seriously have enough saved to do that?
We've been putting a little aside each month.
Jeez, at the end of the month, we have nothing left to save.
Yeah, I have no idea where it goes.
Well, you're spending a lot on...
Is it good?
Oh, God.
Oh, how is my account overdrawn?
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org.
Welcome back to the Scots Sports Show. We start today's show talking wheelchair basketball as on the 10th of March, Edinburgh plays host to the National Championship of the Intercollegiate Wheelchair Basketball, hosted right here in Macomb. It's a 3-day event, and we're going to talk about that with head coach Jim Glatch. Coach, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So let's start, before we get into the grandioso of this, let's start with Edinburgh's team. We're here now at the end of the year getting into this championship. What have you seen from your team all year?
You know, it's a young team, so I've seen a lot of growth. I set up a pretty tough schedule. Last season, we had a nice season. It was still a young team. We won a few more games last year, but this schedule this year was designed to challenge the team. We brought in a really nice group of freshmen to go with what I called my core four. And I thought that as the course of the season went along, they grew as I expected. So the final exam, as we could say, is the national tournament next week.
And how do you expect your team to perform in this national tournament?
You know, with any young team, expectations are high, but you have to put in place that they're still growing. And so while I think they can do very, very well, there could be points in the game that we have to worry about a little bit. My job is to get them back on track, and I think if we play as well as we did at periods of the past 2 weekends, we have a really good shot.
And your first matchup we drew, the University of Texas at Arlington. What have you seen from this team, or what do you expect from this matchup?
Well, UTA has a team that is based on international players. They're elite players. Most of them are on their national teams back home. So we're playing a very skilled team. This is one of the reasons why we wanted to finish with a Canadian national form team this past weekend, to get us ready for the speed of that game. But one of the things that they have that we didn't see this past weekend was size. They have 2 incredible shooters, one from Germany and one from Austria, that are as big, if not bigger, than anybody we have. What we started doing in the second semester after we played them was going to a two big lineup to see if we could run that lineup and still have opportunities to be successful in the defensive end. My biggest concern was I was going to have to start two freshmen now and see if they could continue to play the defense we've been playing all year. And I think as the season has gone along, it has given us a deeper bench because now we're bringing one of last year's starters off the bench, and he gives us energy, and he also gives us the ability to press. So I think it's been working out well. So it'll be a very good matchup. I think Texas will be surprised when they see Edinburgh come in.
And Coach, you mentioned that matchup with UTA and the upcoming tournament as a whole, and that schedule that you talked about. How has that schedule helped prepare your team for a tournament like this, and who specifically in terms of those teams that you intentionally scheduled to try and get your team ready has prepared you for it?
Well, we play a full college schedule, 16 games, and so throughout the course of the year, you it's like a boxing match. You're going back and forth trying to figure out who has what and how to shape your team around that. The last 2 weekends were based on college nationals. We know that we're always going to see some team with size, so we scheduled a Cleveland team that's built all on size with one perimeter shooter. And then we finished with Canada's U23 program, which is all about speed and pressing. We were pressed for 40 minutes back-to-back games this past weekend, and the guys did a great job of breaking that press. So Texas is going to bring that to the table. We figured it would be Texas or Alabama we would open up with even early in the year. And looking at those two teams, they're both built on size and speed. So that's how we prepared our final schedule to make sure we were ready for the national tournament.
And now let's talk about that national tournament as a whole. First of all, what kind of honor is it for Edinburgh to be able to host this event?
It's an incredible honor. You have an opportunity to host maybe every 7 to 8 years. It's actually been 9 since the last time we hosted. And one of the things that it brings to the table is it showcases not only Edinburgh University's wheelchair basketball program, but it showcases the whole university and the surrounding area. And so it's an opportunity for us to bring people from other parts of the country to see what a great campus we have, what a great community we have. So it's definitely humbling because you're putting on this event and all of a sudden everybody's looking at you and saying, "Wow, this is really Edinburgh." That's pretty cool.
And with this event, how much of an advantage is it to be able to go into, especially the national championship, to be able to sleep in your own bed?
If history serves us well, it's going to be a great thing. When we traveled last year to Missouri, it's a 15-hour bus ride. We're sleeping in hotels, and the hotel's 20 minutes away, so you're always on the move. Being in your own bed, being in the gym that you practice in every day of the week is definitely an advantage. The last time we hosted was 2007, and we played at the national championship game. And I think a lot of that had to do with the team, but also the fact that, as you just mentioned, we were in our own beds. We got up, the guys had their chairs downstairs, there was no moving around, and they just showed up at the gym to play ball.
And explain the atmosphere of Macomb Fieldhouse during your games. It's a great atmosphere for everything, but what have you seen specifically for you guys?
During the regular season, we have a tournament in November that's a non-college tournament, and it's usually one of our bigger crowds, and it's family, it's friends, and for the guys, it's an exciting period of time. They get the main court the whole tournament. This is something most of these guys have never experienced. If we have the crowd that we had in '07, when Edinburgh plays, that place will be packed. They'll be screaming, and most of the people in there will be screaming for Edinburgh. So for the guys, it's going to be, I think, a little bit of an eye-opener. What I'm hoping that they don't do is get too nervous with all those people. But knowing this crew, they'll adjust pretty fast. So from that standpoint, it's an exciting time. And again, for most of them, it's the first time they're ever going to play in front of a crowd like this.
Is there any way to sort of simulate that in practice, or what do you do with that?
Not really. We've played, this past weekend when we played up in Canada, we had a pretty small crowd, but there was TV there, so they know there's TV cameras around. We had to use the media timeout, so they were able to adjust to that. When we were in Illinois, they saw a decent-sized crowd for those games because there were so many games going on. Some of these guys have played in front of large crowds when they were in juniors, but to simulate that is very difficult. So again, for most of them, it's going to be a first.
And Coach, we talked about the format off camera. Can you kind of explain how everything's going to be formatted in terms of the scheduling with Thursday, March 10th through Saturday, March 12th? A lot of games going on. How can you kind of explain the format of that?
Yeah, it's based on final standings and then coaches vote, and it turns out that the coaches voted for the records the way they were. So there's 9 men's teams, there's 4 women's teams. They'll have their own brackets. And there'll be a play-in game 8 a.m. on Thursday morning between Auburn University and Arizona State University. The lucky winner gets to play the reigning 2-time national champ, University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, at 8 o'clock that night. So they have a very busy day, a very long day. We will open up at 10 a.m. against the number 2 seed, which is Texas Arlington, and then the 3-6 matchup follows at noon with Southwest Minnesota State and the University of Alabama. The best game of the day will probably be our Texas game, and then the 4-5 game Illinois-Missouri. That's been a close game all year. Those are 2 teams that we competed well with. The 3 seed through the 7 seed are within 5 to 10 points of each other. So that's how competitive this is going to be. There's really only one team. Even Texas Arlington, as good as they've been this year, they're not at the level of the Wisconsin-Whitewater team. They've played undefeated basketball. They're 24-0 coming into this tournament. They didn't lose any games last year, so it's been they're right now like the UCLA of wheelchair basketball at the college level. They're on a streak that they want to continue, and they want to get their 3rd straight national title. So that's where the bracket's set up. It's a fair bracket. The games should be very competitive, except probably that 1-8 game. In between there, between the last men's crossover and the next last one, which is at 2 and 8, there'll be 2 women's semifinal games. University of Wisconsin-Whitewater will open the women's bracket against University of Illinois, who's the number 1 team. Steph Wheeler, who coaches Illinois, is also the national team coach for the women, and she's done a very nice job of preparing her girls. Much like us a couple years ago, they were very young, and this crew has stayed together, and she's built a team that's very good, that's very experienced, and I think that's where you'll see Edinburgh in probably a year or 2. The 2-3 matchup should be very interesting. Texas Arlington against the University of Alabama. Alabama is used to being a 1 seed. They've won 2 of the last 3 national titles on the women's side. They're coming in as a 3 seed, so it'll be kind of interesting. Texas Arlington has a young lady in Rosie Hollerman who's a USA national team player, and she's incredibly explosive. Could play on any team in the country, men or women. She's that good, and she's made a big difference in that program.
Oh, and you mentioned everything you've gone through, and this is not a, as I guessed at the beginning, a double elimination. This is a single elimination consolation.
Correct. Yeah. So the play-in game at 8 a.m. Obviously, the winner gets to move to 8 p.m. that night. The loser of each game on Thursday will have one at least consolation game on Friday and or Saturday. To get to Saturday, you really have to win at least 1 basketball game. So for us, if we were to lose to Texas, we'd have to win our game on Friday to move into the 5th place game on Saturday, but that's not the goal. The goal is to play Saturday afternoon at 4 o'clock. All the teams have that same opportunity based off their crossovers. They'll get a 2nd crossover in Friday, which is all consolation.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here today, Coach.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I would just reinforce, have the fans come out, enjoy. If they've never seen wheelchair basketball, college wheelchair basketball is the top. It's the fastest, it's the most explosive, and I think they'll really enjoy it.
And yes, those games are slated to start the 10th of March at bright and early, 8 a.m. It's an all-day affair, all-weekend affair, as it continues the 11th and the 12th. Tickets for adults for a full-time session is $15. For students, I believe it's $3. So definitely come out and support your Fighting Scots and support this great event. Don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we will speak with some of the players from the wheelchair basketball team. Don't go anywhere.
To compete for a championship in stadiums full with cheering fans and families. To give back. To say thank you for your support. To learn, grow, and prepare for the future. Ask any NCAA student athlete what they want, and this is what they'll tell you. Ask these student athletes, and they'll say with pride, I chose Division II.
The NCAA Division II student-athlete experience goes beyond the classrooms and playing fields. It means a commitment to service and community, helping organizations like the Make-A-Wish Foundation by raising money to help grant the wishes of children with life-threatening medical conditions. Kids like Jacob.
Some student-athletes gave of their time and their energy to raise the money.
It was fun to meet Jeff Gordon.
NCAA Division II, training student-athletes for lifelong achievement.
Welcome back to the Scots Sports Show. We'll continue to talk wheelchair basketball here with two players from Edinburgh's team. We're joined by Ayuba Ali and Blake Rush. Thank you guys both for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's go into this. The national championship coming up. Do you guys feel any pressure? I mean, it is the national championship, so what sort of pressure do you have coming into this game?
Well, it's exciting that we're hosting and being able to show up in front of our own crowd and play for fans that can actually come in here and see us give a good game at least, if not win the championship. So, I mean, I'd say it's a lot of pressure, but at the same time, you just want to have fun and have a good time.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, it's a different feel to play at home in front of a bigger crowd of people that you know, as opposed to playing at some of these other schools where you don't know the people.
Yeah, and what sort of advantage? I mean, you guys mentioned the crowd, but what kind of advantage does that give, being able to play on rims that you know, on a court that you know, with a crowd that you really know?
Well, I mean, the atmosphere, I think, is gives us a lot of boost in our ability to perform better, and gives us an advantage that we can go out and perform at our elite level.
It helps when the crowd gets behind you. When we make a good run, they start cheering more, and it just makes the energy on the court go up for us.
And you've had a long season so far to this point. What can you kind of tell us about the schedule, the quality of opponents that you've had so far on the schedule, and maybe some teams that you'll see with this upcoming national championship grouping as well?
Well, we've played like all the college teams at this point, and there are a lot of good teams, so it gives us a variety of looks to see how we need to improve at nationals before we play, and what we need to work on to get the championship.
Yeah, and our non-conference games have been a big help to us also, because we've played the local team, Bay City here, and they've got some really good people. And then this past weekend we went up to Canada and played their U23 team, which they're very good. So it was a nice games to figure out what we need to improve on going into the national tournament.
Who are some teams that maybe you're really looking to get that matchup against and trying to get that revenge win against, so to speak?
Well, I'd say personally that Illinois and maybe Missouri are like the two closest teams that we've been trying to compete with this year actually, and those are where we're trying to get over the hump to at least compete for a national championship.
I feel the same way. We've had really close games with both of them, and we're just almost there.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're capable of being able to push through them.
And your first game is against, I believe, the University of Texas at Arlington. Have you guys had a chance to see what they sort of bring to the table?
This semester at the beginning we played them at Kansas, and they have two very elite players, I'd say, that they're tall and they're good shooters from the outside. So it's a tough matchup, but we've been working to build up to that, to be able to take them on, and I think we can.
I have not seen them yet because I was not able to make that tournament because I was at one of my buddy's weddings.
Hey, I mean, That's an excuse to miss a game. I'll get. So, you know, a lot of people don't understand in terms of wheelchair basketball, just the physicality that you guys have in every game. Explain for the people who haven't seen you guys play how physical the games are.
I mean, I've heard from fans that have attended our games that it's not what they're expecting. It's brutal. It's like bumper cars almost, and it's a lot of fun to be out there. It's a lot physical. You get bruises and scratches and whatnot during the game, but it's all intensity and it makes the game even better, I think.
Yeah, it's not like AB basketball where you can just cut to the hole really easily. It's really physical. If you're going up for a layup, you're going to get hit by multiple chairs more than likely, and people get flipped over, and the crowd's always all worried about them, but we just get right back up and keep playing.
And you two are two of the top 3 scorers on this team all season long. How much do you put on yourselves, kind of on your shoulders, of trying to perform at your best and trying to advance further and further, knocking out these games and trying to get to that championship?
I mean, it's a lot of burden to get out on the court, and you want to perform at your elite level to help the team at its highest. And coach always tells us to, like, don't worry about screwing up one play. It's always next play, move on. But you want to be able to help the team at its best.
Yeah, it can definitely put a little pressure on you, but I just try to get the ball around as much as I can, but when it's my time to do, I try to knock it down.
All right, well, thank you guys so much for joining us here today, and we wish you the best at Nationals coming up. Don't go anywhere because we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will continue on with the Scots Sports Show. Don't go anywhere.
My experience at Perico has been so great. I feel like it's really my time for school now. I tried going back to school when I first graduated from high school. I just wasn't ready.
It's closer to home. It's very much more affordable than the other colleges in the city. When I finished my degree here at Perico, it would provide me with higher pay. I can actually grow more in my company than I would if I wasn't going to school.
Perico College, affordable, career-ready education.
We dig deep.
We overcome obstacles.
We come together.
We prepare.
We hit the ground running.
And we achieve our goals.
We train hard.
And we compete even harder.
We reach new heights.
We win.
And at Edinboro University, we create champions on and off the field.
Well, that's all we have for you this week. But before we go, let's take a quick look at what's upcoming this week and next week, since it is spring break, for the Fighting Scots Athletics. Starting on the weekend, we have women's lacrosse at Alderson Broadus. They kick off their season. Also tennis on the 5th. The women's tennis team is in action against Bluefield State. Then basketball.
Of course, for the women's basketball team, if they get a win in the PSAC tournament quarterfinals against California tonight, they will return to action over the weekend. The PSAC Final Four starts with semifinal action on Saturday, finals on Sunday, and the host yet to be determined, but it will be a PSAC West school, and if Edinboro wins, it'll either be IUP or Gannon set to host those semifinals and championship game.
Also on Saturday, the wrestling team looks to punch their tickets to the national championships as they are in the EWL championships in Lock Haven all day on that Saturday. The men's tennis team has their crack at Bluefield State then. And then next week, of course, on the 10th, we have wheelchair basketball, the national championships. You can see all those matches here on ETV and hear them on 88.9 WFSE. Thank you once again for watching, and we hope you have a fantastic week and a fantastic break. And remember to root for your Edinboro Fighting Scots, and if you want to catch up to date on all things Edinboro athletics, go to GoFightingScots.com or EdinboroNow.com. And remember, go Borough.
To compete for a championship in stadiums full with cheering fans and families. To give back to say thank you for your support, to learn, grow, and prepare for the future. Ask any NCAA student athlete what they want, and this is what they'll tell you. Ask these student athletes, and they'll say with pride, I chose Division II.
My parents always said that a bridge is only useful if it can be crossed.
At Edinburgh, I found a university that connects who I am to who I want to be.
A school that's affordable, with excellent professors and nationally recognized undergraduate and graduate programs who give personal attention to my success. Edinburgh's also a place with great traditions and big-time school spirit.
Edinburgh University. It's the bridge to your destination. Choose excellence. Choose Edinburgh. Apply online at edinburgh.edu.